Today, help John Adams find Australia's missing 11 tonnes of gold. Hello again, I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to another post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. And today I'm joined, of course, by John Adams. And John, we're on the gold hunt.
We are indeed today.
Right. And of course, there's been a lot of interest in gold, not least from a lot of our followers. But this is a slightly different twist on the story, isn't it?
I have been looking at the gold holdings of the Reserve Bank of Australia for a few years. And in early September, about 6 weeks ago, I put a series of questions directly to the RBA. 6 weeks later, I've got no answers. I got one response in saying that they will respond in due course. I think so. Previously, when I've done other forms of economic research and I've emailed the Reserve Bank, they tend to be very prompt with me. But on this question, they are not transparent at all. So I think it's worthwhile to have a on-camera discussion about this issue, inform the public, and then hopefully if more people are as equally concerned as I am, maybe with the people power, we can actually get some answers out of the Reserve Bank about what the hell has happened with this 11 tons of gold that we're going to be talking about today.
Okay. And I think the starting point is probably a slightly broader canvas, right? In terms of the whole question of gold leasing.
Yes.
Which is a really fascinating but also quite concerning phenomenon.
Yes. So basically for the last decade, there has been an international conspiracy theory going around that Western central banks have been lending out their gold in order to suppress the international gold price. So the theory goes that since 1971, we've closed the gold window. We've gone on to a completely fiat currency system. There's been massive money printing over 40 years. We've seen a massive increase in a whole host of, in terms of asset classes, from real estate to bonds to shares, etc. There has not been any breakdown in the international monetary system because citizens around the world have basically kept faithful with the fiat currencies of the Australian dollar, the US dollar, the British pound, the euro, etc. So obviously to keep that confidence in the paper money, there's been this theory that they've been trying to suppress the gold price down by leasing Western gold to refiners in Switzerland. That gold is then melted down and then is sold to countries where there is high demand for gold. So that is China, Russia, Iran, Turkey, Kazakhstan. So basically East Asia, Central Asia, and Eastern Europe. So because otherwise you would have seen a massive increase in the price of gold.
So what that says is that you start with one gold bar, right?
Yes.
It's on somebody's book somewhere.
Yes.
Right. They then lease it off to somebody else.
Yes.
Right? But it still stays as an entry in that book.
Yes.
Right? That is then melted down and then resold again.
Yes.
So effectively it's recycled.
Yeah.
Right? And then that will appear in somebody else's book, or it will be, jewellery or something or other.
Yes.
Right?
So there's been some international people looking at this, and we're going to show a video very soon about. So there's a billionaire called Sprott, and he assembled his own team to look at this particular question. And what they thought they concluded with was annual gold mining production isn't enough to meet global demand. And because the price has been suppressed and we haven't seen enough supply from the mines, there's a sector of gold that's being funneled into feeding the demand of the East. And the question is, well, where is that gold coming from? So let's just play the clip for the viewers to see.
The way that was done is that there would be an armored car that would take it to Stansted Airport, that would then be flown to Switzerland. It would be re-refined in a refinery in Switzerland, which then produced little bars and big bars, which were then turned into jewelry, which was then hanging on the women of the world, right?
Gold that cannot be replaced.
Okay. So that's really interesting. So it's suggesting that the central banks will have an entry in their ledger which
Yes.
says, we own this gold,
Yes.
when in fact they don't.
Yes. Yes. So that is the conspiracy. Now, because this conspiracy because it's been out there, particularly in certain quarters of the world, this has spooked several countries about the safety and the sanctity of their own gold. So since about 2012, you've started to see a whole host of countries demanding they get their gold back, because after World War II, most of the gold went to France, to England, and to the US. And a whole bunch of countries said, well, we don't want our gold to be in your possession. We want actually our gold back so we know that it's actually safe. So starting with Venezuela, then there was Germany, then we've seen Turkey, Hungary, Austria, the Netherlands, and Belgium, and you've probably got a few other sort of smaller countries as well. There's been this sort of global movement around gold repatriation, and the one that got the most attention has been Germany. So there's been one member of the German Parliament that he's a gold bug, and he's been really pushing this barrow quite hard. He basically sort of was telling people Germany doesn't have its gold, the Americans and the French have it, and we don't even know what state of the gold is. There was a proceeding in front of a court, so the Germany has a court, like an audit court, and they basically said that the audit procedures to look at the gold holdings of Germany, whether it's in Germany or outside of Germany, were completely deficient. And basically, the German central bank has never, prior to 2013, never conducted an audit of Germany's gold. So basically, they would call up the Americans, they'd call up the French and saying, how's our gold? They'd say, everything's in order? And they would just take that sort of acceptance on face value. So the German court basically said, well, that practice of just taking an assurance on face value is insufficient, and you actually have to have a proper audit. So following from that, and following because there was a massive groundswell of populist action about getting Germany's gold back, the German government announced that they would be requesting their gold from London, from Paris, and from New York. So that process happened. Now, in 2012-13, this caused some massive controversy, because the Americans told the Germans that to get your 300 tons, it's going to take 7 years. So from 2013 to 2020, take you 7 years to give you 300 tons of gold. Now, the question was, well, if it's, yes, 300 tons is a lot of weight, it actually takes a bit of time to transport, but surely it doesn't take 7 years. And so this caused a number of massive conspiracy theories around the world to say, well, obviously the Americans don't have Germany's gold because it doesn't take 7 years to actually get it. So that caused a lot of controversy. 2013, they started the process, and basically, I think in 2017, the process was completed. So they actually were able to speed up the timeline 3 years faster than what the Americans initially said. But obviously, having said that, once the cat got out of the bag and the Americans said it's going to take 7 years, everyone around the world in the financial market started to panic, and they're saying, well, maybe the Americans don't have our gold. And obviously, there's been massive conspiracy theories about Fort Knox. Is the gold really in there? Is it not in there? And so when this official reply from the Americans came to the Germans, they said, well, something is amiss. So in our context with the Australia's gold, I've been on a bit of a hunt to find out what's happened with our gold, given this conspiracy theory about gold leasing, but also because there has been a concern about the security of gold that is being held in London, Paris, or in New York. So in that context, I've been looking at the state of play with the gold holdings of the Reserve Bank. Now, prior to 1997, the RBA held 247 tons of physical gold bullion. And in 1997, because the gold price was suppressed, because it was quite low, so we're talking about, I think in US dollars, about $200, $250 an ounce, there was a decision made by a number of countries around the world. UK sold a lot of gold, the Canadians sold a lot of gold, and we sold a lot of gold. So the RBA in 97 made the decision to sell 167 tons of gold, and we went from 247 tons to 80 tons. Now, just on that one decision alone, this decision to sell 167 tons in 1997, so almost 21 years ago, that one decision has cost the Reserve Bank $7.35 billion. So had we not sold the gold in 1997, the balance sheet of the RBA would be 7.35 billion stronger than we are today. So again, mainstream media, the government, no one has talked about this decision really, and no one's been held to account as to you just blew $7 billion. But that's actually what happened looking 21 years back.
Okay. So there was the question of why did they sell it and what value. But the other question, I suppose, is where is the gold? Is it in Martin's place?
Yeah. So that's obviously a very good question. So the Reserve Bank has been extremely coy for many years about where is Australia's gold. Now, in 2012, they finally came out, and I think this was triggered by an FOI request that someone put in, and they conceded that 99.9% of Australia's gold is actually in the UK. It's actually in London, whereas I think prior to the year 2000, it was actually in Sydney. Most of the gold transactions in the world happen in London. So if our gold is in London, it's easier for the Australian government to buy and sell, because if you buy or sell, particularly if you sell, you have to have the gold there so you can actually make delivery. So that, I think from memory, that is the excuse. But in 21 years, after we've gone from 247 tons to 80 tons, we haven't changed the amount of gold we own in 21 years. So it's remained stable at 80 tons. And for me personally, I've been having this thought in my head for at least 5 years that Australia should be joining this global movement, and we should be bringing back our 80 tons from the UK back to Sydney.
So do we know for sure that it's in London then?
Well, so the Reserve Bank has said that 99.9% of its holdings is in the UK. So they have said that on the public record. Now, where the controversy comes up is, now, according to the RBA annual statement, or the annual report for 2018, they have said publicly that 11.1 tons of gold has been lent out or has been leased. So
of that 80?
Of that 80.
Okay, yep.
So what that means is that 69 tons is, in theory, sitting in the Bank of England, and it is there, it is secure. Now,
sorry, have we seen it there? Do we know it for sure that it's there?
Well, I don't think we have seen it. The Reserve Bank, in its 2014 annual report, and I think this was driven a lot by what happened with the Germans, they sent an official RBA team to London to conduct an audit of our gold. Now when these audits happen, you don't get to see all the gold. You only see a sample. So each gold bar will have a serial number and will have the emblem of the nation. So obviously the Australian crest will be implanted or imprinted on our gold bar, and it'll have a serial number. So when the officials from the RBA went in 2013-14 to London to conduct a gold audit, they got to see a sample. How big was that sample? I mean, was it, 20 kilos? Was it 100 kilos? I mean, how big was the audit? We don't know. And the reason why we don't know was the Reserve Bank has never released the results of the audit, even though certain parties in the last 5 years has gone to the RBA and has actually asked the question, can you reveal the details of the audit? So we haven't seen it. We don't know what they found in the audit. We don't know how much of the 69 tons they've actually seen. What was the state of that? But for the purposes of this conversation, let's just say that the gold is there, although no one can be categorical that the gold is there.
Right. So we take the Reserve Bank's word for it that the gold is there.
That the gold is there.
Okay. So now on this 11 tons then,
yes,
that is not there.
No.
Right. So we know that 11 tons is not there.
Yes.
So where is it?
Well, okay. So according to the 2018 annual report, the RBA has said that this 11.1 tons is worth 604 million, and this was valued as of June of this year. And so there's a couple of issues here. The first thing is that it said that, so it's been leased out, and the details of who has it and the terms of the loan are not disclosed, and that's what I've been emailing the Reserve Bank about. But before we get to those questions that I've posed to the RBA, so this is a statement by the RBA, is that so basically to say that 0.71 million or 710,000 income from gold loans was generated like in the last financial year.
So this is on their statement. This is on the Reserve Bank statement of accounts, right?
So there was a particular sentence on page 64 of the annual report that said that there was basically 710,000 of income generated from gold loans. Now, the first point there is that if you've generated 710,000 from a loan of 604 million, the effective interest rate on that loan is 0.12%. Now, there could be a distinction between generating interest from the loan versus income, but they haven't sort of made that distinction in their report. They've just said the income from the loan is 710,000. So the first question I have is that if the Reserve Bank, in the name of the Australian people, are issuing a loan, why the hell are you just charging 0.12%? So you look at the income versus the amount of value of the gold, and they've just charged 0.12% interest on that loan. And the question is, well, that doesn't make any commercial sense.
Certainly not a commercial rate, is it?
No.
It'd be good if I could get my mortgage at that.
Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, anyone would love would take a loan. I think your survey results would show there'd be no mortgage stress if mortgage rates were at 0.12%.
Right. And the Treasury 10-year, right, which is meant to be as risk-free as you can get, right,
yes,
is above 3%.
Yes. So you would have thought that if they're charging the risk-free rate, that they would have been charging some sort of 2.5-3% rate, but they've just charged, according to what we can decipher from the annual report, 0.12% on the loan. Now, I went to the RBA on the 3rd of September, and I asked them some very basic questions in terms of these gold loans. So basically, I wanted to know what is the nature of the institutions or organizations that the RBA has lent to. So I didn't necessarily want specific names. So because if I went to names, they could say specifically that those names are commercial in confidence, and we can't reveal the third party. But I said, what is the nature? Is it other central banks? Is it private sector financial corporations? Or is it non-financial corporations? Are these institutions, organizations in Australia, or are they foreign? So that's the first question. What is the nature of the institutions you've given the gold to? No answer. Then I wanted to know what were the terms of the loan to the third parties? So basically, is there a general interest rate or charge on the loan? So according to their data, I can calculate an effective interest rate of 0.12%. But have I looked at, is that all the revenue, or is there something else that they haven't made clear in their annual reports? So then I wanted to know what is the length of the loan? What is the collateral that is being held by the RBA, so that they can ensure that if the gold is not given back, they've got actually something to protect the value. Now, so I think from one document that I read was that the RBA has said that they have lent out to certain governments, but then certain private parties, and that the collateral with the governments is basically the promise of the government that they will repay. So I think I saw that somewhere. But again, we don't know what the collateral that the RBA is holding, and we don't know who the counterparty is. But the key question I had was, out of all of this, is does the RBA expect the repayment of the loan back in physical gold bullion, or does the RBA allow for the settlement of the loan via a non-physical gold bullion transaction? This, to me, is the linchpin question, because if the RBA will accept a non-gold payment, this says to me that Australia's 11 tonnes, which is on the balance sheet, which we know there are theories out there that this gold has been melted. Well, if they will not take the gold, if they do not demand the gold back, I think we could conclude that Australia's 11 tonnes has been melted down and has been sold to a third party, and then that party has then perhaps sold it to Switzerland, to the refiners, have melted it down, and then sold it to Central Asia or to East Asia.
Right. So the mystery of the missing gold.
Exactly. So I've been hounding them for about 6 weeks. So I emailed them, I think on the 3rd of September. They came back on the 25th of September after I came up with a follow-up email, and they said that in due course we will come back to you. But when it comes to gold and the RBA, there's a history going more than 20 years that they will not be transparent. So if people want to know where the 11 tons of the people's gold is, I think I think I need some help from DFA listeners and viewers and subscribers to contact. Well, first is go look at the RBA annual report, and you will see this reference of the 11 tons and that it's been on loan. And then contact your MP, contact Parliament, but then contact the RBA. Because I think if the RBA gets a flood of emails from people and they're saying, what the hell has happened to this 11 tons? I think maybe if there's more pressure on the RBA, that the RBA will be more forthcoming and actually saying, who has it? Are we going to get it back? Or has the people's gold been lost?
Well, I guess the question I have is, what's the implication? If it is lost, why is that important?
Why is that important? So one of the big things that's happening is that the reason why China, Russia, India, Turkey, Kazakhstan, etc., are buying big amounts of gold. See, in the global financial system, there's a big bet happening, and the big bet is: will the current monetary system with the US dollar as the linchpin, will that survive or will that break? There's a whole bunch of countries who think they will be the leading countries in the 21st century, particularly in East Asia and but also with Russia. They think that the US dollar will collapse ultimately because there'll be less demand for that dollar, particularly with the break of the petrodollar system. Therefore, the American government can't sustain $21 trillion of public debt. The Americans will go broke. And basically, when there is a global currency crisis and people don't accept the dollar, there'll be a new monetary system. Now, there's been different theories as to how does that new monetary system look. Is it the IMF SDR? Is it a basket of currencies with maybe the SDRs and gold? Is it cryptocurrencies, or is it something else? Now, if there is a new global standard where governments around the world saying we're not going to accept US dollars anymore because it's just confetti, well, it's more likely that if gold is in that conversation, gold has to be revalued to whatever that new standard is. Now, if gold is revalued, so for example, gold today is about $1,220 per ounce in US dollars. If the US dollar loses an enormous amount of value and people around the world saying, well, gold will be the new standard, but gold will be it has to be repriced at a much higher level. Well, if gold in the international monetary system is revalued at a high level, the people who hold gold will actually have enormous amounts of wealth to be able to deal in international commerce, in international investment. And those that don't have gold or have very little gold will be crying poor. And so the concern for me is that, one, we have none of our gold. It's all over in London. Well, 69 tons, and then the rest we don't know where it is. So I think the first thing is that, well, let's figure out what's happened to this 11 tons. Once we have a fair idea and confidence we're going to get that 11 tons back, let's call London up. And I've spoken to a couple of people about this. If I was ever Prime Minister, my day one agenda, first one of the things that I will do is call the Bank of England and say, you've got 30 days to give us our gold back, or we're going to start imposing sanctions on the UK. And I guess if I have to bet, if a Prime Minister called London up and said, we want our gold in 30 days, they can't deliver. So, because I am suspicious that London has all of our gold. But again, media won't talk about this. The Australian people are pretty much in the dark about this, but I think we need our 80 tons back. Australia is one of the largest gold producers in the world. So and a lot of our gold is actually exported to China. So China's buying a lot of gold up. But I think that if there is to be some trouble in the medium term with the international monetary system? Well, the government should be actually increasing its gold reserves. We should actually be hedging our bets, because I think what we're doing is that we're following the Western countries, and we think that this gold is like an ancient relic, and yet there's a whole bunch of countries saying, no, the West has completely misunderstood monetary economics, and basically China thinks that they're going to advance, during the course of this century, and the amount of gold that they're amassing is going to be the cornerstone of their financial wealth that then they can translate into sort of military strength. So the gold equation with central banks and with governments, I think, is very important. But again, I think resulting from this episode, I would say 99% of parliamentarians would have absolutely no idea that our gold, that how much gold we have, where is it, and what has the RBA done with its 11 tonnes they've leased out.
So gold is a hedge on the future.
Yes.
And our hedge is a little bit uncertain at the moment.
Indeed.
Okay, John, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So there you go. We have to try and find this 11 tonnes of gold. As John suggested, maybe it's worth sending an email to the RBA or your MP to ask the question, and maybe we'll get some answers. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching. If you liked what you've seen here today, please add a comment or a question. We read them all. And if you liked the post, don't forget to subscribe so that you receive our future updates. We'll see you next time.